The boutique was buzzing with soft music, racks of elegant dresses glowing beneath warm lights. Among the steady stream of well-dressed shoppers, one man stood out, not because of wealth, but because he didn't seem to fit. A tall black man in worn jeans and an old jacket walked quietly through the outlet, his eyes scanning the fabrics with quiet curiosity. No one knew his secret. This entire store, every thread of silk and every polished counter, belonged to him. But instead of recognition or respect, whispers began to ripple at the register. Two cashiers leaned close, their words sharp enough to slice through the air. They mocked him, doubted him, and laughed at the thought of someone like him buying a dress here. He froze, the Maxi dress still in his hands. If only they knew who he truly was. What happens when truth collides with prejudice? Darius Williams was not the kind of man who turned heads when he walked into a room. At 39, he carried himself with quiet dignity. Shoulders broad from years of labor, skin weathered by long days spent working in environments where respect wasn't always given to men who looked like him. His style was modest, simple shirts, clean jeans, and worn shoes that had carried him through a lifetime of challenges. To the casual observer, Darius looked like any working-class man simply browsing for a bargain, but behind that modest exterior was a story few could imagine. Darius had been raised in a neighborhood where opportunity seemed like a luxury, where young men were often told, both silently and out loud, that their future was limited. His mother worked double shifts as a nurse's aide, his father gone far too soon, leaving behind an unshakable lesson. If the world won't give you a seat at the table, build your own table. Darius lived by those words. From sweeping floors in diners to running deliveries for clothing factories, he had worked nearly every job in the fashion and food industries before deciding to create something of his own. And against all odds, through sacrifice, grit, and a refusal to quit, he did. At 35, he bought his first small clothing store. It wasn't much, just a tucked-away outlet with discounted items, but Darius had a vision. An upscale outlet that could serve both everyday customers and high-end fashion lovers. Over the years, he expanded quietly. Today, he owned not just one outlet, but several. His stores were clean, modern, and known for stocking beautiful designer pieces, like the very Maxi dress he now held in his hands. But here's the twist. Darius never flaunted his wealth. He never wore gold watches or custom-tailored suits when he visited his outlets. In fact, he often dressed down on purpose, blending in with the very customers he served. Why? Because he wanted to see the truth, to feel what everyday shoppers, especially black customers, experienced when they stepped into spaces like this. And what he uncovered over the years was both heartbreaking and eye-opening. On some visits, he was treated with kindness, just another face in the crowd, but on others, he felt the sting of subtle discrimination. Suspicious looks, impatient tones, or the kind of silence that carried judgment. He had witnessed staff members treat white shoppers with warmth while barely acknowledging him. Each time, it reinforced why he ran his business the way he did. No customer should feel unwelcome in his stores. Today was meant to be just another quiet check-in. Darius had entered his newest outlet under the radar simply to observe, to feel the energy of the space. He never expected what he was about to hear. The Maxi dress in his hands was a soft shade of ivory, flowing fabric that shimmered under the boutique lights. As he held it up, examining the stitching, he smiled faintly. To him, it wasn't just clothing. It was art, culture, and history woven together. Fashion had been one of the few industries that allowed him to dream when he was young, flipping through magazines that rarely featured people who looked like him, yet still sparking something in his imagination. But his peaceful moment was shattered. Near the counter, two cashiers leaned in close, their voices hushed but sharp enough to pierce the air. They thought no one could hear them over the music and chatter of other customers. But Darius did. Their words came in fragments at first. "Can you believe? Looking at that dress. Doesn't belong in here. Bet he can't even afford the tag." This is what happens when management doesn't pay attention. Each phrase landed like a blow. Darius froze, his heart thudding in his chest, not from shame, because he knew who he was, but from anger and sorrow. After everything he had built, after everything he stood for, here were two employees mocking not just him, but anyone who looked like him and dared to step into this store. He lowered the dress slowly, his mind racing. Should he reveal himself now? Should he confront them outright? Or should he wait, watching longer, letting their own words condemn them? This was not just about him anymore. It was about every person who had ever walked into this outlet and left feeling invisible, unwanted, or ridiculed. And so, Darius made a choice. He would stay undercover, for now, because what he was about to uncover, the truth of how deep this went, would shock not only the cashiers but everyone watching. The boutique hummed with life that afternoon. Soft pop music played from ceiling speakers, blending with the shuffling of clothes on racks and the muted chatter of shoppers moving between aisles. The lighting, golden and warm, made the rows of dresses shimmer as if calling to customers with promises of elegance and transformation. Darius stood quietly in front of the full-length mirror, holding the ivory maxi dress against his frame. He wasn't trying it on, just appreciating it, measuring the fabric with the eyes of a man who understood craftsmanship. But even as he tried to focus on the dress, the words of the two cashiers echoed in his mind. "Doesn't belong in here. Bet he can't afford the tag." He felt his jaw tighten. The old him, the younger Darius, who had fought his way through endless rejection and disrespect, would have marched right up to those girls and demanded an apology. But the wiser Darius, now 39, knew better. The truest way to expose ignorance was to let it reveal itself. So he stayed, watching, listening, waiting. Behind the counter, the two cashiers, young women in their 20s, continued their hushed conversation, mistaking their distance from customers as a shield. "Look at him," one whispered, her voice dripping with disdain. "Holding that dress like he's about to buy it. Please, that's a week's paycheck for him." The other chuckled softly. "I know, right? He's probably just killing time. People like that always browse, never buy. Management should really check who they let in sometimes." Darius felt his chest tighten. People like that. He knew exactly what they meant. The phrase wasn't about income or age. It was about skin, about assumptions stitched so tightly into society that they slipped out of mouths without hesitation. He turned slightly, pretending to examine another rack, but in reality, he was watching, observing. Just then, the boutique doors swung open, and a young girl, perhaps 12 years old, entered with her mother. She wore a bright smile and a headband decorated with tiny pearls. She skipped toward a rack of dresses, her eyes wide with wonder. Darius's stern expression softened. He remembered being a child in a store, clinging to his mother's hand, marveling at things he couldn't yet afford. Fashion wasn't just clothing. It was hope, possibility, the dream of becoming someone new. The girl picked up a dress, holding it against herself. "Mama, do you think this one's pretty?" Her mother nodded, encouraging her. Darius smiled faintly, the scene stirring something deep within him. But when he glanced at the cashiers, his smile faded. They were staring at the girl and her mother, too, but their faces carried the same look of judgment. A roll of the eyes, a smirk. The same treatment he had just endured. It wasn't just him. These cashiers weren't biased against one person. They were poisoned by prejudice against anyone who didn't fit their imagined standard of a deserving shopper. The girl carried her chosen dress toward the counter. It wasn't an expensive piece, just a simple floral sundress perfect for summer. She placed it gently on the counter while her mother searched her purse. The cashier sighed loudly, tapping her nails against the register. "You sure you want this one?" she asked in a tone that wasn't helpful but mocking. "It's not exactly your type of style." The girl looked confused. I like it," she said quietly. The mother's eyes narrowed. She had heard it too, but before she could respond, the second cashier added, "Maybe check the clearance rack in the back. You'll find things more appropriate there." Darius's blood boiled. He clenched his fists by his side, every muscle in his body screaming to intervene. The little girl's face fell, her bright smile crumbling into embarrassment. She looked down at the floor as if she had done something wrong. That was it. This wasn't just ignorance anymore. It was cruelty. And it was happening in his store. But still Darius held himself back. He had to see how far this would go. Because the truth was, if these employees treated a child this way in front of others, there was no telling what they did when the cameras weren't rolling, when no one was around to witness. Inside, Darius's thoughts warred with each other. Reveal yourself now. End this. Show them who you are. But another voice urged patience. Not yet, let them speak. Let them expose every rotten corner of their attitude. Then, when you reveal yourself, there will be no excuses, no denial. The truth will already be laid bare. He exhaled slowly, his grip tightening on the maxi dress. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him. This wasn't just about defending himself anymore. It was about defending that young girl, her mother, and every other customer who had ever been made to feel small within these walls. He was moments away from stepping forward, moments away from ending the charade, and that's when the situation escalated even further. Another customer walked in, a well-dressed white woman in her 40s. She carried a designer handbag and wore heels that clicked confidently against the polished floor. She approached the counter, glanced briefly at the little girl still standing there, and placed 2 dresses down. Instantly, the cashiers transformed. Their tones shifted, voices bright and polite, smiles spreading across their faces. "Oh, these are gorgeous choices," one said, her voice sugary sweet. "Yes, you have such great taste," the other added, ringing up the items with practiced charm. The little girl and her mother, still lingering near the counter, were invisible now, forgotten. Darius's chest heaved with restrained fury. "That's it. I've seen enough." He stepped forward, his shoes echoing softly against the boutique floor. Still clutching the ivory maxi dress, he made his way to the counter, his expression unreadable. The cashiers barely looked at him at first, until he set the dress down with quiet firmness. "I'd like to buy this," he said evenly. They glanced up, startled. Their eyes flicked from his face to his hands to the dress, disbelief etched into their features. For a split second, silence hung heavy in the air, and then one of them smirked. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice laced with mockery. "This dress is quite expensive." Darius's eyes locked onto hers. Calm, steady, unflinching. "Yes," he replied. "I'm sure." The cashier hesitated, then began scanning the tag. Her partner leaned closer, whispering something under her breath that she thought no one could hear. But Darius heard. Unbelievable. He probably can't even pay for it. That was the moment. The breaking point. The line that could not be crossed without consequence. Darius straightened, his full height commanding the space. The air around him seemed to shift, heavy with unspoken power, because what he was about to say, what he was about to reveal, would stop the entire store cold. The boutique had gone quiet. The hum of chatter from the aisles, the faint music drifting through the speakers, all of it seemed to fade into the background. The only sound was the soft beeping of the scanner and the shallow breaths of the 2 cashiers. Darius stood still, his frame tall and unyielding, his gaze fixed on the cashier who had just mocked him. He didn't raise his voice, but there was something in his tone that silenced the room the moment he spoke again. "You think I can't pay for this dress?" he said slowly, deliberately. The cashier's smirk faltered. I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," Darius interrupted firmly. His eyes shifted to the other woman, who now looked pale. "Both of you meant every word." A ripple of unease spread through the room. The young girl clutched her mother's hand tighter. The well-dressed customer, still standing at the counter, glanced between them with raised brows. The air was thick with anticipation. Darius reached into his jacket and pulled out a sleek black wallet. He didn't fumble, didn't rush. With calm precision, he slid out a platinum business card embossed with gold lettering. He placed it flat on the counter, right on top of the maxi dress. The cashiers leaned in to look. Their eyes widened instantly. The card read, Darius Carter, founder and CEO, Carter's Luxe Outlets. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The silence was absolute. every soul in the boutique processing what those words meant. Finally, Darius broke it. His voice was steady but sharp enough to cut. "This is my store," gasps echoed from nearby shoppers. The mother of the young girl covered her mouth in shock while the little girl's eyes grew round with wonder. Even the well-dressed woman stepped back slightly, stunned by the revelation. The two cashiers looked like the floor had just vanished beneath them. Their smirks had vanished, their faces drained of color. "You see, I built this outlet from the ground up," Darius continued, his voice gaining strength now. "Every rack, every shelf, every single detail in this store exists because I believed in giving people, all people, a place to feel welcome. A place where no one would ever be judged by the color of their skin, the clothes they wore, or the money in their pocket." He leaned in slightly, his eyes piercing theirs. "And yet, here you are, mocking me, mocking this child, deciding who belongs and who doesn't, as if that power belongs to you." One cashier stammered, We didn't mean it like that, sir." "Don't call me sir," Darius snapped. His voice thundered now, commanding the entire room. "You didn't see a sir when I walked in here. You saw someone you thought was beneath you, and you made that judgment instantly, without thought, without shame." The younger customers nearby froze, their shopping forgotten, their eyes glued to the unfolding scene. The other cashier tried to recover, her words tumbling out quickly. "It was a mistake. We were just joking around." "Joking?" Darius shot back, his brows raised. "Do you think it was a joke when this little girl was made to feel like she wasn't good enough? Do you think it was a joke when her mother had to stand there and watch you humiliate her child?" The mother, standing nearby, gave a small nod, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. The girl clung to her tighter, as though drawing strength from her presence. Darius straightened, his expression hard but resolute. "You want to know something shocking?" he asked, his voice lower now, but every word laced with gravity. "I didn't come here today to check sales reports or staff schedules. I didn't come here to inspect merchandise." He paused, letting the silence stretch. The entire boutique leaned in, desperate to know what came next. "I came here to remember why I started all this. Because once, not too long ago, I was the little boy standing in a store, being told I didn't belong. I was the kid being whispered about, the one being followed by security, the one being laughed at. And I swore that if I ever had the power to create something better, I would." Gasps rippled again, this time from a place of emotion rather than shock. The girl's mother wiped at her eyes. Even the well-dressed woman, who moments ago had been treated like royalty by the cashiers, looked down in shame. "And now," Darius said firmly, "I walk into my own store and see the same poison I fought so hard against, coming from the very people I trusted to uphold my vision." The two cashiers had tears in their eyes now, their voices cracking as they tried to plead. "Please, we didn't know. If we had known who you were," Darius cut them off instantly. "That's the problem. You shouldn't have to know who I am to treat someone with respect." The weight of that sentence crashed over the room like a tidal wave. Customers nodded quietly, murmuring agreement. The first cashier collapsed into tears, burying her face in her hands. The second looked frozen, her lips trembling as she tried to form words that wouldn't come. But Darius was unmoved. His voice remained firm, unyielding. "You've not only disrespected me, you've disrespected every customer who's ever walked through these doors. And I will not allow that in my store. Not today. Not ever." He turned to the girl and her mother, softening his tone for the first time. "You deserve better. Both of you. I'm sorry you had to go through this here, of all places." The mother's eyes welled up again. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. The little girl nodded silently, still clutching her mother's hand. Darius straightened once more, turning back to the trembling employees. "You're done here," he said flatly. The words rang like a gavel striking wood. Final. Irrevocable. The two cashiers stood frozen, the weight of their downfall crushing them in silence. Around them, customers whispered to one another, their faces reflecting everything from shock to admiration. Some pulled out their phones, capturing the moment. Darius didn't care. Let the world see. Let it spread. Because this wasn't just a lesson for two employees. It was a reminder of something bigger, a reminder of why he had built this empire in the first place. And as he stood there, the ivory maxi dress still resting on the counter, Darius knew this was more than just a purchase. It was a statement that would echo far beyond these walls. The boutique remained hushed, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. The two cashiers stood trembling in shame, while every shopper's gaze was locked on Darius. For a moment, time seemed suspended, caught in that fragile balance between justice delivered and lessons yet to be learned. Darius finally broke the silence. He reached for the ivory maxi dress lying on the counter, folded it neatly, and held it in his hands. His tone softened now, but carried the weight of truth. "This dress," he said, lifting it slightly for all to see, "isn't just fabric and thread. It's a reminder that dignity should never have a price tag. Respect should never be conditional. And no one should ever walk into a store and feel less than human because of the way they look." The little girl's eyes shimmered. Her mother pressed a hand to her chest, overcome by emotion. Around them, other shoppers nodded quietly, some even wiping their eyes. Darius turned to the girl. "This dress belongs to you now," he said gently. "Not because I own this store, but because you need to remember something I once needed to hear myself. You belong. Everywhere. Always." The child blinked up at him, her lips parting in astonishment. Then, slowly, a smile spread across her face, a fragile, radiant smile that carried both relief and hope. Her mother whispered a tearful thank you, her voice trembling with gratitude. News traveled fast. Within hours, the confrontation had spread across social media. Clips recorded by customers went viral. Darius Carter, the Undercover owner, calling out discrimination in his own store. The story made headlines, sparking debates and reflections across the country. But for Darius, the real victory wasn't in the headlines. It was in the ripple effect. Days later, letters began to arrive, emails, messages, handwritten notes from strangers who had seen the video. Parents thanked him for standing up, saying their children felt braver after watching. Former employees shared their own stories of quiet prejudice. Even rival store owners admitted they were rethinking how they trained their staff. Darius read every single message, and with each one he was reminded of why he had started this journey in the first place. The two cashiers were gone. Darius didn't take pleasure in their downfall, but he knew it had been necessary. Discrimination couldn't be excused away as a joke or a slip. It had to be rooted out, faced head-on. In their place, he brought in new employees, individuals who had faced their own share of struggles, people who understood the value of kindness, respect, and empathy. He retrained his staff across all outlets, implementing policies that emphasized inclusivity not as a slogan, but as a lived reality. When customers walked into Carter's Luxe outlets now, they didn't just see luxury fashion. They felt something more, an environment where everyone belonged. One evening, long after the store had closed, Darius sat in his office overlooking the city skyline. He thought about the path that had brought him here, from the little boy humiliated in stores to the man who now owned them. He thought about the girl with the ivory dress, her smile seared into his memory. He thought about the countless others who might never have someone step in to defend them. And then he realized, this fight was bigger than him, bigger than any single store. It was about changing mindsets, one story at a time. Because prejudice doesn't always scream. It whispers. It hides in laughter, in assumptions, in the things left unsaid. And the only way to silence it is to shine a light so bright that it can't survive. Weeks later, Darius walked into that same outlet again. Not undercover this time, but openly as its owner. Customers greeted him warmly. Staff welcomed him with genuine smiles. The store felt different, alive with the energy of change. At the back of the boutique, he spotted the little girl again. She was twirling in the ivory dress he had given her, her laughter filling the air. Her mother stood nearby, watching with pride and relief. Darius smiled. In that moment, he knew. Every struggle, every wound, every injustice he had endured had led to this. Not just to build wealth, but to build a world where even one child could feel seen, valued, and free. And so, this story reminds us of a truth we often forget. Respect is not earned through status, wealth, or titles. It is the birthright of every human being. But here's the question we're left with. How many more stories like this remain untold? How many more people walk into places today and feel invisible, unworthy, unwelcome? That's something only you can answer. If this story moved you, don't let it stop here. Share it. Talk about it. Challenge the whispers of prejudice wherever you find them, and if you want to hear another powerful story that will leave you questioning the world we live in, watch our previous video after this one. Most importantly, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because your support helps these stories reach the world. And together, one story at a time, we can make a difference.